so it's fantastic to have them. I was going to say we'll be recording, but we've started. So what we're here today is to talk about the Culture Night Late Award, which opened this Tuesday. So Gavin, you could move on the next slide. And so this is what we're going to do. We're going to give an overview. We're going to look a little bit at Culture Night Late kind of statistics and impacts from last year. And then we're going to hear from Deborah, who's going to tell us about her project last year in Limerick. And then we're going to come back and we're going to go into kind of the meat of the guidelines. And then we're going to hear from Elizabeth White. And then we're going to finish up with just some kind of practical advice and tips on making an application. So what we're going to do, because we're being recorded, if it's okay with everyone, we're going to just kind of go all through the presentations. And then at the end of that, we're going to stop recording, and then we can have kind of a Q&A and discussion. What I would say is if questions come up as you're listening to the presentation, you can also pop them in the chat. And we'll answer them in the chat and then kind of at the end as well. Just to say, Deborah has to leave a bit early. So if you have any specific questions about her project or anything from her presentation, if you could put them in the chat, Deborah will be happy to answer them. So next slide, Gavin. So let's just look at, I'm sure many of you are familiar with Culture Night. It's really the single biggest public-facing initiative or event that the Arts Council is involved with. It's a national moment celebrating all that makes up the richness and diversity of culture in Ireland today and connects people to cultural activities locally, nationally, opening up new pathways to ongoing engagement with the arts. Culture Night is developed in partnership with local authorities who program Culture Night locally and many other organizations and individuals across the island. Culture Night Late is an award presented, it's co-funded by the Arts Council in partnership with the Department of Tourism, Culture, Arts, Gaeltacht, Sport and Media, soon to have a new name, under the Nighttime Economy Task Force. And this is to offer audiences a greater diversity in their Culture Night experience late into the night, and also to encourage more inclusive and innovative late night arts events suitable for a range of audience types. So next slide, please. So let's look at Culture Night last year. So there were 1,700 events across 5 cities, 187 towns, 81 villages, and 23 rural locations. 2024 marked, and it's a little bit of it maybe continuing, but a trend away from rural locations towards more urban or town locations for Culture Night. The overall audience was just over 1 million, so it's roughly in line with last year. And that kind of, I think we were saying last year, that's about equal to 13 Croke Parks, or about, I think, 20%. It's a very large percentage of Ireland engage with Culture Night. In-person engagement saw a significant increase to 429,000, and broadcast engagement, which was the RTE program, was down on the year before. And we saw a very large spike in online engagement with Culture Night, which was 60,000 people, so up 50%. What was interesting as well, the Arts Council, and some of you might have seen the recent presentation, commissions a behavior and attitudes poll every year, looking at cultural habits and engagement of people. And what they saw is that there was a significant increase in overall awareness of Culture Night across the country. And this is kind of one of these representative samples. It's not for culture aficionados, it's for the general public. So that was very heartening to see. So sorry, Gavin, next slide. So let's look at Culture Night Late. So when we say this is encompassing the events that were funded under this award, but it's also events in general across Culture Night that were deemed to be late night. So there were 191 late night events held in 2024, which represented 11% of overall events. And there were 19 flagship events funded under this award last year. And I've just listed the counties there. What was interesting is 36% of Culture Night audiences said they had attended a late night event, which is an increase on the year before. So one thing to note, which is kind of informs our planning and the Arts Council's planning, is each year our partner Milestone Inventive in Galway, who coordinate Culture Night on the ground, they commission a very large scale kind of survey looking at kind of Culture Night, a post-event survey. So we get some very valuable data from them, which informs our planning. So sorry, next slide. So let's look at some of the impacts. And this is really important because again, it kind of informs the award and it informs the funding that we're able to get from both the Arts Council and the department to run this award. So Culture Night Late was seen to add a huge visual and experiential impact to Culture Night, what is called the wow effect. It demonstrated how outdoor spaces and maybe non-traditional art spaces can be used safely and innovatively at night. It kind of proves, and we saw again through the statistics, that there is an appetite for contemporary events on Culture Night, which is kind of, these are becoming more relevant to the overall programming. In some areas of the country, these events that the Arts Council funded were the only events taking place past 9 p.m., which we see as a real missed opportunity for other venues. And it's why we've made some, or is part of the reason why we've changed how this award is structured this year. These events encourage all areas of the community to come together, regardless of age, gender, or socioeconomic background. Sorry, next slide. So one thing, and we'll kind of talk about it a bit now when we go into the award itself and the priorities, is we're kind of working, or we worked quite a bit last year on addressing and supporting the diversity and inclusion of Culture Night, both for audiences and event organizers. And one of the things that was interesting to see is when we surveyed Culture Night organizers and we asked who dealt directly with themes of diversity and inclusion, we saw a significant increase last year, which was quite interesting. And 50% of artists in 2024 versus 37.5% in 2023 identify as diverse. And I would say that if we look at kind of the Culture Night Late in particular, this is delivering very strongly under this area. So thank you. Next slide. So now I'm going to stop talking for a bit and Gavin, you can stop sharing, and we'll bring on Deborah O'Connor to talk about her project on Culture Night last year. And what I would say is this is really invaluable to have Deborah and then Elizabeth later, because you'll really see how, your peers and you can really see how these projects came together, and you can get an idea is this something you would like to do or you think you could do this year? So thanks.
Great. Thanks, Katie. Just to check, can everyone hear me okay? And my screen is sharing?
Yep.
Okay, great. So maybe first off, let me just minimize this actually. So first off, I guess just to give a little bit of background about Top 8 and who we are. So we organise hip hop events to promote all 4 elements of the hip hop culture in Ireland. So that would include breaking, DJing, MCing and graffiti. And really a key focus area for us is supporting the street dance styles, which would include breaking, hip hop, pop and Afro and crump. And Top 8 was founded in 2010 and then later reformed by myself and Toby in 2014. I think Toby is also on the line today, and we do have a team in place really to help support and drive these events forward. And really in relation to our mission and values, then it's really to provide that safe space for people to feel seen, heard and express themselves regardless of their cultural background, race or ethnicity. And we really want to build that sense of community and belonging. So really our values are peace, love, community and respect. And I guess, talking about our event last year, I really do want to thank and, express the importance of our partners. So for last year's Culture Night Late, that would be Dance Limerick and the Commercial Bar in Limerick. And I will talk about this, and I will go back to how important partners are when I kind of go down through some tips that we would feel as a team might benefit those of you who would like to run an event for Culture Night this year. So I guess what did we do last year? So we really had an event that really celebrated, our differences, but also our similarities in the areas of dance, voice, art, and music. We had an event that took place across the two venues, so Dance Limerick and the Commercial Bar, and we worked with approximately 25 artists. We did focus on street dance, but then broadening it to other dance styles as well. The funding that was provided really allowed us to deepen those relationships and collaborations that we had established with other art forms, artists, art organizations and agencies. And also the level of national marketing allowed us to reach new audiences, which we wouldn't have received before. And also we did get support by the local council, so Limerick City and County Council. Now I do have a nice video, kind of a snap of the event that I will share at the end of the presentation, if my computer allows me. So I will go back and show you that video because I think it really just sums up the event really nicely. But what I kind of wanted to share, I guess, from our personal experience running events and applying for funding and doing the Culture Night Late, I think to start with, really find your reason why. Know your reason why, find your purpose, because that's so, so important to know exactly what you want to deliver. And I think even when you're writing not just the funding application, but if you do receive funding and you're organizing the event, every now and again, you might need to remind yourself of why you're doing that. So I think your reason why is really, really important. Also the resources, ensure that you do have a core team in place who are passionate about the project as much as you are, because you really will need to rely on those resources that you have in place. So really build your team and spend the time to build your team in advance of, your project and event that you're running. The partnerships and collaboration really are key. The in-kind support that your partners and your collaborators can provide is really invaluable. And what I would suggest is to really do this, in advance of submitting for funding. So take the time, to chat to potential partners, potential collaborators, give them really enough time to be able to support you. You might need, for example, a letter of support. Everyone is so busy. So really give your partners and your collaborators time well in advance of submitting your application so that they really can support you as best they can. So like for us with Dance Limerick, Mary and the team, they're always there to provide that support, and Rocky in the Commercial Bar in Limerick. Also, we would suggest to really understand the technical requirements to fulfill the project. So, you don't need to be a technical expert. If it's not your strong point, involve a technical expert. So, for example, we use 85DB. They're a company that really provide that technical support for us for all of our events. Something that we've had to learn, I guess, the hard way is don't overprogram your event either. Really figure out what you want to do. Plan out your event. What I would say as well is, budget. Take into consideration that you may not get the full funding, up front. You will get a portion of that upon closure. So also take that into consideration when you're planning out and you're budgeting for your event. And also something that we did learn the hard way, I guess, is double, triple check any mandatory supporting documents for your application, that you include them. A number of years ago, we did apply for a funding, not Culture Night Late, but we had forgotten to include one of those mandatory supporting documents, and unfortunately then did not get the funding. So I guess for new applicants, I'd say don't be afraid of the process. But then even for seasoned applicants, it's never guaranteed. So always check your documentation and make sure you've kind of read and reread your application before submitting it. Also, the local authorities, I would say engage with your local authorities. There might be, for example, additional funding that might be available, like strategic funding to support your Culture Night Late event. So really engage with those local authorities. Again, their support is really invaluable when you're running an event like this. And something that we really thought was fantastic last year was the Culture Night Late Toolkit. Was so helpful to promote the event. So I would say really utilize that toolkit if you are successful with your funding and you're running your event. And again, patience and consistency. It is challenging, and I guess that's part of the reward, that it's a challenging thing to run events and projects. So that's where you might need to remind yourself of your reason why, but keep pushing through. So have that patience and consistency, I think, is also really, really important. So what I might try do now, if my computer lets me, is I'm going to try to share the video of our event. So let me share and see if I can share with sound. So hopefully this plays the sound when I play this for you. Great. So any questions? That's all from me. So thank you so much for the opportunity to present.
Thank you so much, Deborah. That was so helpful. And I think some of the things, especially around your tips, are just really invaluable, no matter what, as you were saying, no matter what award you're applying under. One of the things that I think is really important, just as kind of general advice, is that kind of partnership piece. So all of you work with people all the time on lots of different projects, lots of different initiatives, and kind of start the conversations, really as soon as possible, and look to see, the support that your application can get, whether it be financial support as cash or also in-kind support. One thing, as well, and we can get into this later, is look at your own resources and say, what do we have that could possibly be apportioned to this project, outside of your time, because, we will go into this. The Arts Council has kind of paying the artist policy. It's never about that, but looking at, do you have equipment? What do you have in your own resources that can be put to the project? So I think that was just so helpful. And again, I know Deborah has to pop off. But if you have specific questions for Deborah, put them in the chat now, and she can answer them. So we'll just thanks again, Deborah. That was
thank you so
really
much.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on. So yeah, we can go to the next slide. This is just an overview of the award, which I've kind of said before, and let's just kind of pop on to the next slide there. One thing I would say, and again, this is true to whichever funder, that you're applying to, understand what their remit or their role is. So that the Arts Council is the national government agency for developing the arts in Ireland, and we work in partnership with artists, arts organisations, public policymakers, and others to build and ensure that the arts are central to Irish life. So what is the strategic context of the Arts Council? So we can go to the next slide. So this is something, again, to kind of understand for for all funding. You really need to understand why the funding agency you're going to is offering its funding. For the Arts Council, the overarching strategic context, first of all, is making great artwork. It ran from 2016 and it's finishing up this year in 2025. And this has a series of kind of key objectives that are based around the artist and public engagement. And this will be the overarching kind of policy context for all of our funding. But we also have a number of other key policies. I referenced it earlier, paying the artist, ensuring fair remuneration of artists and cultural workers, and also crucially, and you'll see this quite strongly in this award, the Arts Council's Equality, Human Rights and Diversity Strategy. Further to that, I mentioned the Department of Tourism, Culture, Arts, Gaeltacht, Sport and Media, which the name will be changing, but I'm still using their current name, and their report of the Nighttime Economy Task Force. And that's what really kind of freed up the funding for this. So it's not saying that you have to have all of these memorized, but you should kind of familiarize yourself with them and ground your application within these. So let's move on to the next slide. So this is a big, a big mouthful. And again, we'll make our presentation available, and everything in this presentation is taken from the guidelines. So that's kind of your Bible for this process. So now we have our priorities specifically for this award. And you might be hitting some of these as, kind of stronger than others, but this is really the linchpin of this funding. So first, we're looking at public space, and this is the importance of accessible shared places and spaces and how they can be used for the public engagement in the arts. So here we're looking at, one thing that's really interesting is some of the spaces that mightn't always be activated for the arts and culture, and certainly mightn't always be used late at night. So there's just a list there of some examples of what we're talking about. Another thing that can be really useful is looking at what we funded before and familiarizing yourself with that and seeing some of the spaces that were used. Obviously, this is a core for all of the Arts Council's funding, is we're looking for artistic excellence. So we're looking for kind of high quality, ambitious and collaborative projects. And we're looking for these across a number of kind of art forms or practices. And you heard from Deborah, they were really, they were looking across different, different forms of dance, different collaborations. So that is something, that you often see in Culture Night. These are projects that can, they can maybe test new models, they can test new partnerships, they can be innovative. And again, here we have partnerships. So for this award, and I'm thankfully going to hand over to Suzanne in a minute, this award is rooted in partnership, and the key partnership is with the local authority. So you will need, in order to be eligible to apply for this award, you need to have the involvement of a local authority, either as the lead partner or a supporting partner. And here we have public engagement and inclusion. And I referenced earlier how this is, the single biggest public event that the Arts Council is involved with. And here we're looking for applications and projects to have core considerations around access, equality, diversity, and inclusion. And again, referencing our policy there. And also, again, address the challenges outlined. And we specifically say here the pages 12 to 13 of the Nighttime Economy Task Force report. This is linked in the guidelines. And again, make yourself familiar, with these challenges and show how your application might be addressing them. So next slide. So again, we move on to the next, which is supporting artists. And here it's ensuring best practice in payment of artists as per paying the artist policy, and ensuring due consideration is given to working with artists with disabilities. We'll talk a bit about the access funding that we have specifically to support artists and people working directly on your project who do have disabilities or access needs. So this is kind of, again, a key consideration of this award. Here we'll look at financial support, and this is the level of cash or in-kind investment by your partners. So this must be 25% of your event's total cost. So this is something that you need to kind of be paying attention to because, again, it's a key priority and it will impact your overall feasibility of your project. So again, thinking about Culture Night, these events must be open and free to the public. So you can have ticketing or pre-booking, but they must be free. And again, in order to be eligible, well, Culture Night starts from kind of 4 p.m. onwards. In order to be eligible for this award, your event must start at 9 p.m. or later. So I'm thankfully going to stop talking for a bit and I'm going to call on Suzanne to jump on.
Hi. So just to kind of remind people, Culture Night in 2025 is going to be taking place on Friday, the 19th of September. Just to have that date in your head if it's not already there. For 2025, Culture Night Late is actually running two strands in this award. So strand one will be for late night, and we're calling these the flagship events. So these are the beginning after 9 p.m. and we're looking to support innovative, large scale, kind of the big flagship event with an audience capacity of over 500 people. To be eligible for Strand 1, the lead applicant must either be a local authority arts office, arts centre, arts organisation, a festival, or a production company. And as Katie has reiterated, and we will continue to reiterate in this presentation, all applications must be made in partnership and involve your local authority arts office. So either as a lead applicant or a project partner. So if you haven't already done so, please do get in touch with your local arts office if you do have a proposal that you think could be relevant under this award. And just to note that because we're looking at flagship events, each local authority arts office can only submit one application as the lead applicant or as a supporting partner under Strand 1. So from each local authority area, there is only a maximum of one application that can be made for a Strand 1 event. And the maximum you can apply for is 16,500 under Strand 1. And we're anticipating that we have funding in 2025 that we can make up to 8 awards under Strand 1. And then Gavin, if we can move on to the next one. So then Strand 2, sorry, if we can just go back a slide, please. So Strand 2, we're looking at supporting more, we want flagship events. We also want people to kind of try something new as well. So looking at maybe something innovative and, to give a unique audience experience. So again, beginning after 9 p.m. And for Strand 2 events, we're looking at an audience capacity of over 200 people. Again, the lead applicant must be the same type of people and type of organisations as for Strand 1. And again, they must be made in partnership and involve a local authority arts office, either as the lead applicant or the project partner. While in Strand 2, each local authority can only make one application themselves, they can support a number of applications. And the maximum you can apply for under Strand 2 is between 5 to 8,000 euros. And we anticipate that we can make up to 10 awards under Strand 2. So we move on to the next one. So again, I'm going to just fly through these because there's a lot of detail, and as Katie has said in the chat, we can make these slides available to you after the presentation, and all of this information is taken from the guidelines. So really, that is your reference document for everything to do with your submission. So the award is open to local authorities, arts festivals, arts centres, production companies, and arts organisations to create a Culture Night Late event in a public space or place. And again, as we've said, the lead applicants, it can be the local authority arts office. It doesn't have to be, it can be an arts centre, an arts organisation, an arts festival production company, but you must be submitting your application in partnership with the local authority arts office. Non-arts organisations could be considered partners in a project on the condition that the project does also involve 2 or more arts partners. Next slide, please. So just a quick note, as in we've said who can apply, we also need to just note who can't apply. So it is open to those various organisations in the Republic of Ireland only. And again, keep reiterating this, applications must be made in partnership and involve a local authority arts office. And if you don't meet the criteria for the applicant, then you won't be eligible, unfortunately, to apply. Next slide, please. So just to recap, the maximum you can apply for under Strand 1 is 16,500 and 8,000 under Strand 2. As Katie has previously said, the award will cover 75% of the costs, and the remainder of those costs, at least 25%, should be matched by the applicant and the project partners. And this can also include in-kind support. So we've listed some ideas of eligible expenditure can include arts fees, curatorial fees, production costs, technical costs, security, but the award does not cover fixed capital costs or asset. We need you, as part of your application, to show the proposed expenditure should include all fees, wages, technical costs, publicity, admin costs, whatever is relevant to your application. And you should also note your proposed income should include whatever you expect to receive from the other funders, sponsors, and this is where you would also list your benefit in kind, if applicable. So just to note in-kind support, because it is something that people maybe would have a question over. If you expect to receive in-kind support, you need to put a financial value on it so that we can see the value in your proposal. And you should think, when you're thinking of in-kind support, you should be thinking of it as both expenditure and income. So whatever you declare on one side, you should also declare on the other side. And just to note, time contributed by directors or board members may not be reckoned as an in-kind cost. So next slide, please. Again, as Katie has said, the Arts Council is committed to improving the pay and conditions of artists, and we've published our Pay the Artist policy, and we would really strongly encourage you to read this before submitting your application, because you'll be asked to kind of reference in your application how you will ensure proper pay and conditions for the artists. So that, again, we'll have the link and we'll circulate this to you all, but you can also find it on the Arts Council website yourself. Next slide, please. Again, as Katie has mentioned, we are committed to making our funding schemes and the work we do accessible to everyone. To meet this goal, we offer financial supports known as disability access cost to remove barrier cost for artists and participants with disabilities. And this is separate funding for personal disability access costs. So this would be in addition to the core budget or to your core allowance. The Arts Council has an access officer, one of our colleagues, and again, we will share details of how you can contact them. And if you have any access needs or want to talk through the specifics around what you can and cannot include, they will be more than willing to discuss that with you and give you some advice in that area. But really, it's looking at the supports that will help you to remove barriers for artists or participants with disabilities who are helping to deliver your proposal. And we've given some examples of supports, but this is not an exhaustive list. So you might be considering an ISL interpreter, an access support worker, additional rehearsal or studio time. So really, it's dependent on the specific needs of the artist or the participant with disabilities. Next slide, please. And if you are just to note that if you are including disability access costs in your proposal, you must upload a document listing these so that we can see what the itemised with. On the Arts Council website, there's also an optional template available in the payments template page, and then you can show the costs as two lines, separate lines in your application form. Next slide, please. Okay, we've got a fairly exhausted list of what you may not apply for. And just to note that you can run through these yourselves in the guidelines. I'm not going to go over every single one of them, but just to note that you can only apply for a standard Arts Council. You may only apply for one. You may not apply for more than one award in any art form, arts practice area in any one round of funding. And just some things that you can't apply for are activities or costs that do not fit the purpose of the award, activities that have already taken place or are proposed to take place before we will have announced when the award have been made, activities undertaken for charity or fundraising purposes, anything that has already been assessed by the Arts Council, unless you demonstrate that you've changed the proposal. Next slide, please. And this is kind of really important. And again, it's referenced in the guidelines. What supporting material you must include, as Katie has said, you know, your application will be made in a, or and as Deborah has also said, your application could be made ineligible if you are not including all the supporting material. And when you've put so much time and effort into making an application, it's so disappointing when a small piece of documentation may make it ineligible. So please do read the list of supporting material and check and as Deborah said, check and double check what supporting material you must include. You must include a statement or letter of support from each of your partners in and performers in relation to the project. And this is also very important. Again, harking back to the local authority arts office. If the local authority arts office are not the lead applicant in this application, you must get a statement or a letter of support from them when making your application. Um, so I'm not going to run through it, but please do check all of the supporting documentation that you must include. And then there's also a list of additional material that may be required in certain circumstances. So if you're looking for additional access costs, if your work involves working with animals, next slide, Gavin. If you are working with children and young people, if you're working with vulnerable costs, then please do look at the requirements for the additional supporting material that needs to be included with your application. Next slide, please. And now, after hearing that kind of very kind of detailed requirements of the guidelines, we're going to pass over to Elizabeth White from Wexford Arts Centre, who's going to give us an overview of the project that they ran last year, 2024 Culture Night Late, which was funded through the Culture Night Late Award. So I think if we stop sharing, Gavin and Elizabeth, we can
Thank you.
invite you to join and share your screen.
Thanks, Suzanne. Thanks, Katie. Hello and good morning, everybody. I'll just bring this up now and hopefully that shows up. Does everybody see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Yes, we were delighted to receive the award last year. Just to give a little overview about us, we're Wexford Arts Centre, we're situated in the centre of Wexford town. We're situated in this beautiful 18th century building in Cornmarket, but in 2022 we got a long-term wish of getting an extension, a beautiful extension, and with support as well from the Department of Arts and also the Wexford County Council. This is a picture from our opening day, which a little bit of enhancement from Bwee Bullock on our roof. And we are multi-arts art centre, so we have exhibitions, we have workshops in performance and visual arts. And we also have a large variety of outreach programmes, especially in partnership with Wexford County Council. We would have supported Creative Hub Studios. We're now supporting New Westgate Visual Arts Studios and New Music Studio, and also education programmes in school. So our mission is embedded in our vision as well, which is in the arts for all and arts for life. So that we're catering for everybody in the Wexford community from very young to young at heart. And also quality emphasis on the delivery of a contemporary arts programme with emphasis on participation. So when the opportunity arose to apply for the Culture Night Late, Liz Burns, who's the Arts Officer in Wexford County Council, approached us as well with the interest of applying together for a flagship project. And Tamara, and this is also the Wexford coordinator for Culture Night, who was involved in the partnership as well. And it was an opportunity for us to celebrate our 50th anniversary as the oldest regional arts centre in Ireland. And do something really, really ambitious, and showcasing as well the heritage and culture of Wexford. We have a very strong Viking and Norman culture, and this is a way to project that across. So because our theatre is quite small, it'd be about like 200 standing or 110 or 120 seated or 80 cabaret style. So to reach that kind of 500 capacity, we said, well, this is an opportunity for it to outreach to a bigger audience outside. So that's why we looked at consideration of doing projections on our beautiful building, and showcasing the building and the heritage and culture as well. So our proposal was embedded around that. And originally we did have the idea of doing outside performances alongside live performances alongside projections as well. So in relation to projections, we approached Algorithm, who are a wonderful company. They've done great work. We'd seen with Solstice, and also as part of I think it's the Dublin Theatre Festival as well. So we approached them with the idea of collaboration, and they were really on board with it as well. And they gave us support letters for our application. We have a program, So Say So program, which is run by the wonderful Stephen James Smith, who is an artist in residence with us here. And it's a spoken word program where different spoken word artists are invited, national and international, to participate. And they work alongside with a local group, music group Basketball, who do improvised scenic music around them while they're doing their spoken word. And we also have opportunity for audience participation in this. And it's a really popular program. So we thought there's an opportunity to link the So Say spoken word and music with the projections outside at the same time on Culture Night as well. So we get a kind of a multi-arts experience as well, and supporting further artists through the partnership. So we also approach as well Johnny Murphy and Marona Marr, who are two wonderful local-based, Wexford-based artists. They've done a beautiful projection animation of Samsara, and we thought this is a lovely way, an opportunity to include them as well and showcase them, the wonderful local artists in our community as well within the projections, and they were delighted to be on board too. So I just have a little timeline of the breakdown of when we applied and we got approved on the 20th of May, and the establishment of meetings. Ongoing meetings, communication is very important. I think it's also a very strong kind of note to make, because a lot of this communications and meetings have to take place over summer and people go on holidays. We also had the FLA last year, which took up a lot of time, but especially in relation to event management. External event management, there's a lot involved in it, and it's making sure that applications are in for like traffic management. That was one area I think we didn't have enough time to put in. You need at least like 8 weeks or so if you want to close off roads. And also getting on board the support, as Deborah mentioned earlier, resources so important. If you don't have the proper, we were trying to do everything ourselves and crossing over on the event management. But really, I think it's important if you don't have the full expertise for, especially for external event management, in relation to something like this, get somebody on board who has done it before. So we were lucky to get Davy, who was an event coordinator with the Wexford County Council, but we got him on board later on, but I wish I got him on board earlier. It would have saved a lot of headaches earlier on. But that's just one good note to make. Also, so our plan was to have the projections from outside, but when Algorithm came down and they were saying, well, is there a business that we could look at where we could have our projector? And there was across the road, there was Kieran, and they had a staircase and their windows just looking straight across at us. So that was a great saving for us, because and they were happy to give us the space and access to the space after hours for to set up the projector there on both Thursday evening when we needed to do a trial run and on the night itself. So the original plan is that we'd hoped to close off the whole road, but because of the timeline, we couldn't get the access to close it off. But what we did was we put barriers around the footpath so people could gather around there. And then we had the actual performance event was in our theatre, but we project the sound out. So the sound lined up of the spoken word and the music going on inside with the projections that went on outside while it was on a loop throughout the night, Culture Night, so that it would allow then many groups. It wasn't just a once-off event. It allowed many people to access seeing this animation throughout the night. I'll come back to the video. I just want to give some stats here, and then I'll come back to the video to give you a showcase of it. But this is a kind of our group. We had Davy and the crew below, and then the people gathering here over the side, while inside we had the event. And they also had a video of the outside projections inside going on. So it was kind of inside outside event as well. So we've Peter Murphy and Baskerville over here, and Liz Burns up at the top, with Melanie O'Reilly as well. And of course, the wonderful Cormac Murray, who's a brilliant creative director, who produced the wonderful animations with his team, produced by Talma. So I'll just go back, and then the impressions from social media, over 15,000 engaged. We reached over 525. Though I'm sure there's more as well with traffic going through later on. And we reached as well, I know there was mention of online reach there by Katie, and that was so important to our social media, because we had a lot of diaspora, Wexford diaspora all over the world connecting in, and this is their only way to connect in with Culture Night through this, and how inspiring and how moving it was. And to get front page as well on the local paper, and which also went national too, was a big coup for as well. And a very important, the toolkit was really important and really helpful to us as well, from the Culture Night toolkit associated with the Arts Council too. So I'll just, I'll probably have to go back here and see if this open. Oh, I think I have to close out of here and open. You bear with me now. So hopefully this is showing.
You'll walk past Hibernia, yeah, Branwen, Enterprise. Now you're moored here with all that rise. You'll move here alone in the middle of a pandemic and come to understand the term Dublin-centric. You'll say Walsh, not Welsh, and faith, not fag. Being outed by your accent is an obvious prologue. You'll learn how big your presence is and want to hide. You'll put a brave face on and say you never cried. You'll almost speak to the bullring preacher, and this'll teach you how a small town is a strange creature. You'll say small town, not because you're from the big smoke, but because you travel beyond the no Dublin's just a joke. Daily, you'll walk past Celia, Nordster, Enterprise. Now you're tethered here with all that rise. We'll all rise until we don't. We'll all want until we won't. We'll all compromise in one way or another. We can all live here because of each other. We'll all rise. 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 You'll buy a bird feeder and fat balls from Beb's Bits. You'll watch the robins eat your loneliness as they clean up fellowships. You'll worry about doing too much too soon. You'll cross the bridge laden on pursued by a fuller. You'll fall for Phil from the tidy towns with all those black socks, being heartened by her will to help despite the sore back. You'll go home, not sure of where home is anymore. You'll watch the documentary North Circular and know what it is to be in limbo. You'll share word from Whisper stories about blow-ins with the Curse Murphy. It's funny, it's sad, it's satire, it's death by 1,000 cuts, and it's a true story. Daily, you'll walk past Liam Marie, Edith Collins, Enterprise. Now you're fixed here for the rise. We'll all rise until we don't. We'll all want until we won't. We'll all compromise in one way or another. We can all live here because of each other. We'll all rise. We'll all rise. We'll all rise. We'll all.
So that's just a little snippet of it. If people want to see the full, they can see it on our YouTube website. So thank you anyway for the opportunity, and best of luck to everybody applying.
Thanks so much, Elizabeth. Again, it's just so helpful to hear from projects. I think it makes so much more of an impact than, us reading through the guidelines. And I think what was really interesting is two very different projects. So you can see Culture Night, it funds, Elizabeth kind of in a way, a very kind of classic flagship and being really innovative in how you reach that kind of 500 audience and kind of activating a number of spaces to do that. So that's really interesting. And again, Deborah's just a very, very kind of innovative model, and they kind of did the same thing with the use of two spaces and kind of getting a very broad and diverse range of audiences to engage with the project on the night. So thank you so much. I would say, I know there was a problem with the video where we had the audio, but we couldn't see it. So I'll definitely share that link after when we're emailing out the presentation and all of that. So we're almost done, I promise you, not too much more talking. So Gavin, if you want to pop on to the next slide. So the first thing I would say here is, okay, you have like just under a month to make this application. It's really to kind of get started as soon as possible. Give yourself enough time. I'm going to say that a few times. So the first thing is, obviously, this is just a slide of where to find all the information. And again, we can send you the link. So all of the funding is, if this is the homepage of the Arts Council website and you click on funding, it's available funding, and you'll see all the open awards. Prior to that, for your own planning, because I imagine this mightn't be the only award that you apply for this year, have a look at the Arts Council's funding schedule and start planning your year, because you're at a good point. You kind of we're at the start of our kind of awards process for the year, and just, have a think and kind of think, what am I going to apply for this year? What do I need to do? But obviously, we're talking about Culture Night Late. You have a month. So the first thing you should do is, if you don't currently, all applications are made through online services, and you see the tab there. And this requires that you essentially have an account with them and that you have what we call an artist reference number. So you need to be getting that as soon as possible. It takes up to 5 days to be issued with your artist reference number, and at kind of busy times, this can take longer. Sorry, Gavin, next slide. So here again, some links here. Go to look for the guidelines and download your application form to kind of begin working on that. I shared it in the chat. Have a think about any accessibility requirements, both for the project, but for you as an applicant. It could take longer. You might need some more support. So there is a contact there. So for the team, it's probably easiest. Obviously, you can reach out to any of us, but if you use our local@artscouncil.ie email, we're kind of it's across all of us. So it's less likely to, I guess, fall between stools. So here, if you have kind of technical requirements, there's a specific website for that, online services at Arts Council. If you have kind of content questions, that are to do with the guidelines, then you'll get in touch with the team. There's also a YouTube guide on how to make an application. But again, as soon as you kind of something comes up and it's a question, get in touch with us. So if we go on to the next slide. So here, and we have kind of talked about this, and I know Deborah certainly talked about it. Really give yourself plenty of time and kind of don't leave it too late. So that's one of the most common ways, if we look at across the Arts Council, why things are made ineligible. It's because you missed the deadline. So even by a minute, you're going to be excluded. The other thing that is probably the biggest thing to look out for is not uploading all your supporting material. There's a checklist in the guidelines, and just make sure that you have included everything we asked for. Because as Suzanne said, you don't want to come so far. You've had so many conversations, you've had so much thinking, and then you're made ineligible. And again, this is something, and I'll talk a bit about the assessment. And this is with any funder. They should be laying out how they are going to assess your application. How are they, what is the criteria for your application scoring well and being successful? And it is all in the guidelines. So that should be in your mind the whole time. You should be, sorry, my cat is kind of got me. You should be looking at all your award priorities and framing your application in that. There is what you want to do, and you guys are the expert in that. You produce these events. This is what you do as your day-to-day work, but there's how you have to frame it. So the Arts Council and the peers who will be assessing your application understand it. So always have that in your mind. Have them beside you as you're kind of developing your application. And again, I've put it in red for this award. You have to have the support of a local authority. So without that, you will not be eligible, and all of that work, won't go any further. Here's the thing, and it's really important to understand that through our process, and I'll talk to it in a minute, a number of people will be involved in the decision on your application. The local team is part of that process, but ultimately we are not the final decision makers. And the best thing to do is to kind of think about, I remember that advice in school when you're writing an essay, pretend that the person reading this doesn't know anything about this subject. You have to be kind of clear and concise and unambiguous. And we kind of say ambitious as well, because it is a competitive funding. So what's really important is obviously, that idea of track record in your project. So there's you as the applicant, you're going to be providing your CV, you're going to be providing examples of work, but it's also through your partners and anyone kind of involved in your application. Take the time. So if you're bringing in someone for a specific purpose, show that they are qualified to deliver on that purpose. So just think about all the people involved and kind of make sure that you're articulating, why that they are a strong partner, why you are in a position to deliver what you are saying you're going to be delivered. Again, just make sure you're kind of asked for your budget in a number of different places. Make sure they all match. And again with the access, where access costs relate, those personal access costs we talked about, that will be in addition to the maximum award, but they need to be shown in your budget. So say you were applying for 16,500 under the flagship, but you had, kind of 3,500 that were access, your budget would actually be 20,000. It would be above what you're being asked for. And again, just general advice, have someone, and maybe someone who's not as related to your project, but have someone read your application before you submit. Sorry, next. I think this might be the last. So here we're going to just quickly go through the assessment process. So it's, you might wonder, why does this take 10 weeks? Well, there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of things that need to be done. So initially, the first check is for eligibility, which I've kind of gone over. And then we move on to the assessment. And again, this is laid out in the guidelines, and this is exactly what any assessor or peer panelist will be given. The 3 criteria that you will be assessed under are artistic quality. So that is artistic excellence. And I know for the most part, like people, you will be delivering on this because you do these things. This is what you do. And now we move on to meeting the priorities of the award. And that is really important to kind of link back what you say you're going to do to what we are asking for under this award in terms of priority. And then we have feasibility. And this is really important. And this is where things like your supporting partners, your track record, the funding you have already committed to the project. So where you can have funding or support committed and, you know, backed up with a letter of support, this will come under very strongly contribute to your overall feasibility. So the local team will assess your application, but in addition to that, we will ask for other art form or arts practice like comments. So if your project is a dance, you know, primarily dance, we will go to the dance team and so forth. Once that process has been complete, applications are recommended as either shortlisted or not shortlisted, and they're sent to a peer panel who will ultimately score and make the final decision based on the budget that we have for this award. I would say just in general, and again, in general as applicants, your applications will have been read by will be read by your peers, a lot of people that give you very valuable feedback. So if you are successful and if you are not successful, always ask the Art Council for your feedback on any award, because we can make that available. And I think it's very useful for kind of future development of applications. Following on from the peer panel, you'll be informed in writing. So in this case, your kind of artistic peer panel are the decision makers. Once they have made the decision, we send those to our council for noting, and you will be notified in approximately 10 weeks from the date of your application. So I think that is us done. So Emer can stop recording now, and I just want to thank everyone for coming. And